Hungarian Folk Tales. The Fairy from the Oak Tree. Once upon a time, many years ago, there lived the son of the Green King. Now, since he was all alone in the palace, he was bored, and so he picked up his gun and set off hunting. When he came into the forest, he spied a little rabbit, took aim, and was about to shoot. "Excuse me, young prince, one good deed deserves another. Spare me my life." And so he spared the rabbit's life and went further into the forest while the rabbit scampered away. Then he came upon a fox, and the fox said to him, "Don't shoot, young prince. Spare me, and your good deed will deserve another." So the prince spared his life too and went further into the forest. There he found a deer, and the deer also spoke to him, "Spare me my life, and good fortune will bless you." Off you go to the centre of the forest. There you will find an oak tree with 3 branches. Lop off one of the branches, and out will come a fairy. But take some water with you, for she will probably have need of that. So off he went, and he came upon the oak tree, and he lopped off a branch, and a beautiful fairy appeared. "Water, water, please. I need water." The young prince dashed to help, but dropped his flask and all the water spilled out. The poor fairy died there and then. All he could do was to take her in his arms and carry her home and bury her. Time passed, and the prince set off hunting again, and he came upon the fox. "Now then, kind young prince, for your good deed I'll tell you something good. Go into the forest, cut off another branch of that oak, but bring water with you because you may have need of it." The prince had a flask of wine with him, and he thought that the wine would do. He lopped off the branch. Out came the beautiful fairy. He gave her some wine, but still she went and died. So he picked her up and carried her home in great sorrow and buried her. After mourning her for a while, he once again set off into the forest to go hunting, and he came upon the little rabbit. "Now then, kind young prince, for your good deed I'll tell you something good, but come with me and I'll show you a spring of running water." Then they came upon the oak. "Now lop off that branch." And once again a beautiful fairy came out of the branch and cried, "Water, water, I need water." The little rabbit took the beaker, gave it to the fairy, who drank deep from it, and this time did not die. She then knelt before the young prince and thanked him for freeing her from the oak tree. They embraced and kissed. So now all 3 of them set off home. On their way to the palace, they came to a well and sat down beside it. There the fairy spoke. "I dare not go into your palace wearing fairy clothes. Please go home and fetch me some new robes." Now there was a willow there, and she climbed up into it, and a witch arrived to draw water. She glanced into the well and saw a beautiful fairy. She gazed and gazed but couldn't see anyone in the water. Finally she saw the fairy up in the tree. She called out to her and asked her what she was doing up in the tree. The fairy explained everything to the witch. And what did the witch do but seize hold of the fairy and throw her into the well, and the fairy changed into a beautiful golden fish. Then the witch set off home and fetched her own daughter to the well and made her climb up into the tree. Soon the prince came back carrying clothes. He saw the little rabbit and asked him where the girl was. "I went home to have a bite and a sup, and when I came back, she was up in the tree." So the prince looked around and, right enough, there was a girl in the tree. "Down you come and put these clothes on." And when she came down from the tree, he saw her face, and it was ugly now, when before it had been so beautiful. "Oh, dear prince, I was struck by the rays of the sun, and they changed my face." So the young prince went ahead and gave her the clothes to change into, because he thought she was the fairy. And he took her back home to the palace. One day the witch came to see her daughter, and when she was there she said, "I went by the well, and there I saw in the water a fine golden fish. Now what you have to do is pretend to be ill and tell the prince that the only thing that will cure you is if you have the golden fish caught." The prince would do anything for his princess. So the golden fish was caught and cooked, and she ate some and was cured. A single scale fell from the fish to the ground, and out of it there grew a beautiful golden apple tree, which burst into flower every evening and grew apples by noon the next day, which the fairies came for in the evening. Once again the witch went to see her daughter. "What's going on here? You'll have to have that tree cut down, or else they'll know that you're not the fairy." So the young queen said to the king, "We have no use of that apple tree. Cut it down so that we won't ever see it again." Now nearby lived a poor man, and he was the one who cut the tree down. And when he was chopping it up into logs, a small chip flew off, and he put it in his pocket and took it home with him. The following day, the man, his wife and daughter went off to work for the king. They set off so early that they had no time to sweep the floors or make their beds. But in the evening, when they got home, they found that the house had been swept clean and all the beds were made. And they wondered who could have come to their house. On the next morning, they set off to work again. But they left behind their daughter, who hid herself. What did she see but the fairy pop out of the chip of wood and start sweeping the house? Then the daughter took tight hold of the chip of wood to stop the fairy returning to it. So that was how they caught the fairy. And the two girls went off to work at the king's court. There they took turns in telling stories. The king asked, "Now tell us another one about what you saw and did in your life." Once upon a time there was a young prince, and one day he went hunting and he met a little rabbit, a fox, and a deer. "For I am the fairy who the young prince set free from the oak tree." And the prince embraced his fairy tenderly. He had the witch and her daughter tied to a horse's tail, and the prince and the fairy from the oak tree lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Poor Man and the Dog. Once upon a time, there was a poor woman who lived together with her poor husband. They didn't have a thing in the world that they could call their own, except for a brood of children and a filthy little pig. Once they found themselves so utterly penniless that it well nigh drove them out of their wits. The woman said to the man, "Listen, my husband, let's slaughter the pig. You take the pig fat to the town and sell it, and I'll cook a fine meal for the children." So they slaughtered the pig, but its fat was as thick as my little finger. So the man wrapped the pig fat into a little bundle, tied it to the end of a stick with a piece of twine, and set out to the town to sell it. He walked over hill and dale until suddenly a dog sprang out of a ditch and started snapping at his heels. "Woof, woof, 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 woof. Hey, you mongrel, leave me be. Don't hold me up. I'm going to the city to sell this pig fat. I want to make a little money." Woof, 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 woof. What's that? What's that? You say you want to buy the pig fat? Well, I'll sell it to you, but will you pay for it? Woof, 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 woof. You'll pay for it in 3 weeks from now. That's a long time, but I myself am poor. I know what it is to be without money. Fine, it's yours. But 3 weeks from now, I'm coming back for the money. And if you don't pay, I'll beat you until you beg me for mercy. So the man took the bundle of pig fat from the stick. The dog grabbed it in his teeth, trotted back to the ditch and started to chomp and chew at it with great delight. When the poor man arrived home, his wife was waiting for him at the gate. "Dear husband, did you bring home any money?" "Money? No, I have not brought home any money." "Blessed Lord, what have you done with the pig fat?" "The pig fat? I sold it." "Then tell me, to whom did you sell it? Who was the shameless wretch who didn't pay?" "I gave it to a dog." "Blessed Lord, how can you have been such a fool as to give the pig fat to a dog?" "He told me he would pay for it in 3 weeks from now." "Dear husband, tell me, how did you speak with the dog?" "Quite easily. I asked questions. He woofed." "Dear husband, you are a fool." And from then on, the woman teased and taunted her husband, calling him a fool and a half-wit. But the man really was a little thick in the head, and he paid her no mind. The 3 weeks soon passed, and the man took his stick in his hand and set off to get the money he was owed. He went over hill and dale, and when he reached the spot where he had first seen the dog, the little mongrel leapt out of the ditch. It wagged its tail and barked at the man. "Woof, woof! Woof, woof, woof! Woof, woof! So, little dog, here we are. I have come for the money. Woof, 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 woof. Enough of your woof woofing. Give me the money." But the dog only woofed some more. Woof, 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 woof. The man became angry, and he hit the dog with his stick so hard that the little dog yelped in pain, ran back into the ditch and started to dig. And it dug, and it dug, and it dug, and lo and behold, a little barrel of money rolled out of the dirt. The man was overcome with joy. "Goodness me! Forgive me if you can, little dog, for having struck you with my stick. I never imagined you were so wealthy. I'll take half the money to pay for the fat and half as interest." So then he took the little barrel under his arm and set off, proudly swaggering home. Once inside, he dumped the countless coins on the table. The children rushed in and started spinning and rolling the little coins. The man and the woman began to discuss all the things they would buy. They were overjoyed. But alas, the man in his joy could not keep his silence. He walked the length and breadth of the village and cried out at every gate, "We're rich! We're rich! At last we're rich!" His wife snapped at him. "Foolish man, be quiet. Our relatives will hear that we have come into money. They will rush to our doorstep and beg us to give them some." But she cautioned him in vain, and the man continued to boast and brag. One day the woman said to her husband, "Dear husband, it's cold and rainy. Go stand by the stove under the chimney where you can warm yourself." The chimney in the poor man's house opened up to the sky, and when it rained, the water dripped down onto the coals. The woman went up to the attic with a bucket of water. There was still a bit of sausage left over from the pig. She threw it into the water and poured the whole bucket, sausage and all, down the chimney, onto her husband's head. When he felt the little pieces of meat falling on his head, the man ran out of the house. "Dear wife, did you see? It's raining sausage." "I see, dear husband, I see. And do you know why it's raining sausage?" "It's raining sausage so that we may remember the time we suddenly found ourselves rich. If someone asks you when we came into a hoard of gold coins, you tell them it was the day that sausage rained down from the skies. Do you understand?" "I do, I do." Barely 3 days later, the judge arrived with 2 policemen. "Show us the gold coins. We all know you recently came into a hoard of gold coins. Your Honour, gold coins? When did we ever have gold coins? Her foolish husband answered, Dear woman, have you forgotten? It was the day sausage rained down from the skies. Ah, yes, Your Honour, my husband is not quite right in the head. For never has sausage rained down from the skies, and never did he or I come into a hoard of gold coins. The judge and the policeman laughed heartedly, for the world is indeed full of fools. The poor man and his wife enjoyed their new riches, and they all lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. King Kitty. Once upon a time there lived a poor old woman, and she had a cat. The cat was so greedy that he poked his nose into every jug and jar. Then the day came when the old woman could not stand the cat's greedy ways any longer, and she said to him, Get out of my house. You may go wherever you like, but never darken my door again. So the greedy cat was forced to go out into the wide world. The cat walked until he came to a bridge, where he sat and gave a sad meow. And as he sat, he caught sight of a fox sitting nearby. The cat prowled slowly around the fox and rustled the bushes. The fox was terrified, as he had never seen a cat before, and the cat was terrified because he had never seen a fox before, so they both just stood there shaking. Which of us should be in charge? What? You don't know who I am? I'm King Kitty. All the animals are afraid of me. Oh, I am ashamed to say that I have never heard of you before, the fox confessed, and immediately invited King Kitty to his humble home for a sumptuous supper of chicken, duck, goose, and anything else he could find. Please eat more, Your Majesty. Make yourself at home. When the feast was finished, the fox prepared an exceptionally soft bed for King Kitty, who ordered complete silence while he had his royal nap. Get away from here! Don't you know that King Kitty is sleeping in my house? If you wake him now, he's sure to have you executed. Where are you running to? Are the hounds on your tail? Don't ask me, Bear. I was passing Fox's house and he told me to run away because King Kitty sleeps within, and if I woke him, he'd have me executed. The bear pondered. I have travelled to many lands, but I have never heard of such a feline figure. I shall pay a visit to the fox and see this King Kitty for myself. Oh, Bear, please don't go there, because if you wake King Kitty, he'll have you executed and me along with you. This frightened the bear, who ran and ran until he reached the rabbit. Oh my, what will happen if King Kitty wakes up and walks out into the forest? I've got a splendid idea. Let's all invite King Kitty to a banquet. If you trust me, I'll go to the fox and invite His Majesty. All right, I'll go to see if King Kitty is awake, and I'll inform him of your wish. Your Majesty, a crow has arrived sent by the animals of the forest to invite you to a royal banquet. King Kitty brushed his white whiskers and said, "Very well, you may go and tell the crow I will attend." As evening came, King Kitty began to make himself ready. He waxed his whiskers and left in the company of his host the fox. The crow met them to show the way, but the crow was too scared to fly down to the ground, and so instead he flew from tree to tree and called, "This way, please, this way, please." The other animals soon sighted King Kitty arriving with the fox. "Oh dearie me, here comes King Kitty. He'll skewer me on his spiky whiskers." But all of a sudden the animals took fright and fled to all four corners of the forest. And if these foolish animals had not run away, my story would have lasted longer still.